All right, we are live. Welcome, Eliza. Eliza, you're on the West Coast somewhere.
Yes. I'm in
Awesome.
Huntington Beach.
Awesome. You ready to dive in?
I am. I
Cool.
am.
Okay, where do we start? What do you want to throw at me first?
Well, I mean, let's talk about what's going on right now and how what are some ways to stay aligned. There's a lot of polarity, a lot of fear, anger, anxiety, and so it's probably hard when you've got that going on all around. So, what would be your message to people who are struggling in staying aligned in times like these?
Yeah, and that's a great starter question because alignment should take priority over everything, right? So alignment is where we stand in our power. Alignment is when we're connected to source, connected to our inner guidance, connected to the power of the mechanism of synchronicity. So the analogy that I like to use is, a human being that's out of alignment is like a cell phone that doesn't have their internet connection, right?
Hmm.
So how useful is a cell phone going to be if you can't check your email, check Facebook, check Instagram, or check TikTok or all the social medias? So for me, when it comes to things like my business, I won't even send an email if I'm not in alignment. So alignment should always be our number one priority if being that leading edge creator is what you're really after. So great first question. So the key to alignment is putting your focus where it counts, right? Knowing that anytime you're focusing on things that doesn't feel good, that it's going to pull you out of alignment. Now, that doesn't mean ignoring what's going on or not giving attention to it, but it means first getting out ahead of it by focusing on your alignment, getting into alignment, feeling good, and then tippy toeing into those things that might trigger contrast, that might not feel so good. So that's one thing. And then the other thing to look at is, it's never the circumstance that pulls us out of alignment, but it's our perspectives about the circumstance.
Sure.
So one common question that people have is, how do I prevent, this family member from pulling me out of alignment all the time? Or how do I prevent other people from lowering my vibe? And, the answer that I give is you've got three options. So option one is go live in a cave, right? So
Hmm.
that you're not around anybody. Option two is to control other people to the point where you're making them be the person you want them to be so that you can be happy and staying in alignment. And I'm not sure if number two is any easier than number one. And really, number one and two aren't very valid options. And number three is the only valid option, which is exploring what triggers that they spark in you that's creating the discomfort for you, that's creating your out of alignmentness, and
Hmm.
working through those perspectives. Because by working through what you have going on inside that's being triggered and releasing, the negative emotions, the fears, whatever it is, then those people will no longer trigger you. If you've got a strong dominant emotion of not good enough, it only takes a little comment from somebody to trigger that and bring that up. But if you deal with all your emotions of not good enough and you're a strongly confident person, then what other people are going to say are not going to matter to you.
Sure.
And that analogy applies not just to people, but to circumstances and everything else. So really that was a long-winded answer to a simple question, which is get out ahead of it, make alignment your priority as soon as you get up, because the sooner you get into alignment, the easier it's going to be for you to hold on to it.
Okay. And then as far as your definition for alignment, as far as gauging whether you are or you aren't, is that based on your emotions?
Yeah, the number one, people like to measure it based on how many synchronicities they're experiencing and how much stuff they're manifesting, but really the only true indicator is how you feel. So the better you feel, obviously the stronger that level of alignment is going to be.
Okay. All right. I like that.
Yeah.
So as far as then everything that's going on right now, so redirect the attention rather than going out back inwards and finding how you're feeling and
Yeah,
finding why you're feeling that way.
with all of the, what's a good word, all of the circumstances that are unfolding all over the planet right now, especially in the States,
Mhm.
our default is to want to push against things. So anytime we're pushing against things that are unwanted, what happens is we continue to vibrationally add momentum to it.
Mhm.
So that's the tricky part, because you and I and most good people, we want positive change, right? A human being is a human being no matter what their age, gender, race, all of that stuff. And it's unfortunate that there's people on the planet who don't have that level of awareness that everybody is equal and should be treated equally. And
Mhm.
from a focus standpoint, from a vibrational standpoint, from a law of attraction standpoint, the best thing to do based on my understanding of law of attraction is to focus on the good people, focus on the positive circumstances, focus on the potential change that's all possible through the current contrast and through the difficult times that a lot of people are going through right now.
Okay. Um, so I know you're saying that, our purpose here is to grow and expand and be joyful. And so my question for you then is, in these times, what are your growth and expansion lessons for you?
Well, that's a good question. And it's funny because for me, I don't go looking for the lessons.
Mhm.
So we're always going through, expansion never ends. So our inner guidance is always guiding us through that excitement to our next step and our next step and our next step and our next step. And for me, I would say my highest guidance right now is understanding, how powerful these teachings are and getting these teachings out to as many people as possible. Now, my focus isn't change the world. My focus isn't how do I save people. For me, I'm so excited about the teachings and so excited about the life-changing shifts that I'm seeing people experience, that I'm focusing on that and understanding that not everybody's in the receiving mode for it, and that's okay. It's not my job to change the world. My job is to be me to my fullest, just like everybody else. And those who are in the receptive mode and want to learn, what I'm teaching, what I'm putting out there, um, I'm happy that they're showing up.
Maybe meaning those who are on the same frequency as you, right? Who are tuned in.
Absolutely.
Um, awesome. And so I think we're kind of chit-chatting about this like right before, but I know that you've been getting a lot of downloads, and you have been noticing that you have the ability to channel, and a lot of people are starting to go in that direction. Just kind of want your viewpoint on that, and if you're going to start going in that direction in your teachings as well.
Yeah, so I think everybody channels in one way or another, whether they realize it or not. So, for example, when you're talking with some friends and there's a name of a person or a restaurant that you want to say, but like you can't quite remember their name and it's on the tip of your tongue, and then like you give up, and then 15 minutes later you're on a completely different topic, and all of a sudden that name just pops in your mind out of the blue, right? I think you've experienced, and a lot of
Right.
people have experienced that. I think that's channeling, right?
Okay.
So I think my definition of channeling is any piece of information that comes into you that's not necessarily something you've kind of computed with your analytical mind. So
Okay.
I think we have two sources of internal information or knowledge. One is the mind, which does the analytics, which has memory, that kind of thing. And then there's our higher mind or our inner being or source, where when we're in alignment and when we're connected to source, and not in the energy of struggle or pushing against or effort, that's when those things can flow, right? And I know information comes from that place when it kind of comes out of the blue. So if I'm driving my car, admiring the beautiful scenery out the window, not even thinking about my businesses, all of a sudden a business idea pops into my head,
Mhm.
that I know is channeled information because it wasn't something that I was currently in my state of awareness that I was focusing on. So to me, that's my definition of channeling. And what we're seeing, or what I'm seeing, especially in the last year and a half,
Mhm.
is more and more people are waking up to the awareness of channeling, not just the type of channeling I just described,
Right.
but similar to the channeling that Abraham Hicks does or Bashar does or all of these well-known channelers, where the conscious mind is checked out, and while that conscious mind is checked out, a stream of information can continue to flow. And what I think is happening is those of us who practice these teachings, our vibration is elevating. And as our vibration elevates, and a lot of people who come into the collective, they'll notice that when they clear a lot of their baggage, when their vibration starts to raise, they experience more synchronicities, they experience more inner guidance. And that's because as your vibration raises, you get closer to those higher frequencies where that information comes from, right?
Sure, where it flows
When it
better.
flows. So what happens is the higher your vibe, and let's use spirit guides as an example. So
Okay.
if the vibration of a spirit guide is here and you're here, as you raise your vibration, it can somewhat lower its vibration to a place where you can both kind of hear each other.
Right. Yeah.
Make sense?
So with that said, we hear, everybody's starting to kind of be a lot more aware of what's going on with being able to channel and all that. I also hear a lot of terminology like 5D and 3D, 4D. So I want to hear your take on it, because everybody seems to have different,
Yeah.
perspective and perceptions on it.
Yeah. So the term that I use is kind of old paradigm and new paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
So old paradigm is what I call kind of like old reality, where the dominant energy, the dominant focus, the dominant experience is effort and struggle and hard work, and achievement comes through action. And that's probably where most of society kind of still operates.
Mm-hmm.
The flip side of that coin is what I call the new paradigm. And the new paradigm is where ease is the norm, and you rely on the mechanism of synchronicity so much more, and you're aware of source and manifestation and law of attraction in these concepts. And the dominant focus of life in the new paradigm is pleasure and enjoyment, and understanding that from that place where pleasure and joy and happiness is your dominant state, life unfolds in a very, very different way,
Mm-hmm.
where it's just easy. Like for me, so one of the big differences between old paradigm and new paradigm is old paradigm, we function mostly out of our analytical mind. So all of our decision making is done by analyzing circumstances, looking at life experiencing, processing it all up here, and then making a decision, right? The next step up from that, which is what most spiritual people are aware of or practice, is making decisions from your intuition, feeling out what decisions are best, and then maybe cross-referencing it with your mind. Now, the next step beyond that, which is what I call fully in the new paradigm, is operating purely out of impulse.
Mm-hmm.
It's being in alignment and being in that pleasurable place where you're connected from source, and you're just following your impulses of inspiration. So, oh, I've got an impulse to go write a book, I'm gonna go write a book. Oh, I've got an impulse to go cook dinner, I'm gonna go cook dinner. Oh, I've got an impulse to go take a nap, I'm gonna go take a nap. It's understanding that these impulses of excitement are coming from our inner beings, are coming from that inner guidance. And what's magical about operating from that place is you're not trying to figure shit out all the time. You're not in your head all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it takes this big load off of your shoulders, where you just live life in a way that's so much easier and so much more relaxing. And in spiritual communities where they talk about 5D and ascension, I think it's essentially the same thing, where 5D, you're operating under that new paradigm state of being.
Uh-huh.
The mistake that most people make around the concept of 5D is they think that like there's this planetary ascension and everybody's automatically ascending to this 5D where everything's going to be dreamlike and everything's going to be great. And what
Mm-hmm.
people don't realize is that ascending, isn't something that happens to you. It's
Yeah.
something that is a byproduct of you working on your alignment and dealing with your stuff.
Right. There's like nothing out there that's going to come save you. It's something
Exactly.
you have to work within yourself. I like that.
Exactly.
Um, so when was your breakthrough? Because I'm sure there was a moment where you had to go from the old to the new paradigm, and then you had that struggle. So when was it when you realized it was easy? Because I think that's where, even myself, that's where I'm at, where I'm struggling to. I now the concept, I know it's there, right? The new
The mental
paradigm.
awareness. Yeah.
Yes, so I know it's there, but there's still a lot of struggle trying to, apply and understand. So there's a knowledge, but not the actual
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah. And for me, there was never one defining circumstance. There was a lot of different ones that happened throughout my life. Um, but it's more of like, gradually learning a concept and then mastering the concept and then
Mhm.
learning another concept and then mastering that concept. So awareness is always the first step. And I think a lot of people, they'll gain the awareness, they'll be on a live call or they'll read a book and, they'll gain the awareness. But for some people, it takes months or years before they finally kick themselves in the ass hard enough to actually implement and take action on it. Right.
Sure.
So for me, a lot of the focus on what I teach is like cutting through all the crap and simplifying this stuff as much as possible to get people to apply this stuff. It's funny because a lot of people sometimes in the collective, they'll say, oh, when can we have a more advanced call? We want something that's more advanced. And yeah, but you don't need more advanced. What people need is, to be guided through the steps and being given processes that work and supporting people in their implementation of processes.
Mhm.
So what I would say is, instead of trying to learn all the things and look at all the processes and all the concepts and all at once, is, pick the one thing that you need to work on, or pick the one thing that you need to practice, and
Mhm.
then stick with it for a week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, long enough till you've really gotten it. For me, a lot of people know that I've had, $1 million manifestations and dream relationship and, all this big stuff, but it's not because I'm more intelligent or luckier or better at alignment than most people. It's just I really focused on taking concepts and acting on them and implementing them. And when fears come up to try to stop me, use the belief tree process to work through those fears, or not letting my inner state of being hold me back from implementing.
Gotcha. So I'm a person of specifics, and I know you said that there wasn't just one, there was just a more of a gradual process. So what was one of your biggest barriers that you were able to break through that kind of gave you the assurance, okay, this works?
I would say I love that because, Abraham Hicks says life experience is the best teacher, right?
Mhm.
And I could sit here and I could tell you stories of synchronicities all day long, but until you really experience this stuff for yourself,
Mhm.
you, the mind doesn't make that mental shift. And
Yep.
I would say for me, and this is the first time I actually reflect on this, so it's a good question. So I would say for me, it's all like the little synchronicities adding up. Like,
Mhm.
for example, like with Anik, her and I, we share the same name. Both our parents call us Nick. We met driving the same type of car. We did the same type of work. After we started dating, we found out we'd left our marriages on the exact same day before we'd ever met. Right. So when I asked myself, if I knew that she existed before we had met, what are the chances that I could have gone out and found her with 7 billion people on the planet? I never would have expected her to be living in the same town as me, right? So it's seeing like, it's the big synchronicities like that, the
Mhm.
miracles like that. Same thing with the car manifestation last year that I had. Like, it's it's the life experiences that really reinforce the teachings for
Mhm.
me over time, made me realize without a shadow of a doubt that like this stuff is absolutely legit.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, great answer. So you actually, so it's a matter of finding those synchronicities because it's always there, and it's a matter of people being aware and being grateful for it,
Yeah.
rather than focusing on, oh my God, this negative thing is happening to me, and
And the tricky part is people try to make synchronicities happen,
Mm.
But again, anytime you're looking for something, you're in the energy and the vibrations of the absence of it, right? So, in the collective, the dominant focus is not on manifestation. The dominant focus is stepping into the new paradigm. Because the old approach to law of attraction is, how do I get, this, that, and the other thing, right?
Right.
And when you're chasing after things, whether it be a relationship, happiness, anything you chase after, you're automatically in the vibration of the absence of that thing propagating that cycle. So the key focus that I put people on, whether it's the collective or a client, it's stepping into the new paradigm. And the key to stepping into the new paradigm is making pleasure the focus, making joy the focus, getting to a place where you're so happy, where you're enjoying physical reality so much that you don't care about the manifestations anymore. And when
Mm-hmm.
you get to that point, that's when you start letting the manifestations in.
Okay. So looking and awareness is different, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. So what are some things that we could do to enjoy and absolutely love life while being surrounded by the current situation?
I would say take a step back and focus on the pleasure in the little things around you. This is a great question. Somebody in the collective a few months ago said, Nick, I manifested millions of dollars. I used to be a big real estate guy. I lost it all. I'm back down to square one. And it's hard for me to find pleasure because I'm used to the high level pleasures and really expensive things.
Mm-hmm.
And my advice was take a step back and focus on simplicity. Focus on, the pleasure of that cup of coffee that you just made, right? The pleasure of being able to lay outside on your patio and enjoy the warmth of the sun. It doesn't matter what the source of the pleasure is. It's just a matter of you finding a way to tune into it. And I think that everybody has access to something that's pleasurable all the time. It's just a
Absolutely.
matter of giving our attention and focus to it and making that a priority in our life rather than turning on the news and indulging in the drama that creates a different type of high.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that actually gets me curious. What does the news or what do the news say in Canada? I mean, is it pretty much the same thing as what we're hearing?
I don't tune into the news a whole lot. I'll check my Reddit feed when I wake up just to see if there's any like really breaking news.
Mm-hmm.
There's this typical COVID stuff. I know that they're talking about what's going on in the States. But for me, I kind of mostly stay off the news. I just focus on me, focus on the collective, focus on laying out on the beach, focus on my kids. And what's really presenting itself into my physical reality um, rather than what's going on TV.
Okay, awesome.
Does that
All
make
right,
sense?
it does.
Awesome.
So focusing on the little things like tiramisu and coffee.
Exactly. And focus, focus on what feels good, right? Make a list if you have to. Just, make joy and pleasure a priority. It's interesting because a conversation I had with somebody last week was they were very focused on all these processes. They were like, how do I get in the ultimate state of alignment every day? What processes do I need to do? Do I need to meditate and focus wheel and positive aspects and use my Muse headset every morning and do all of these things? And I told them to take a step back because the purpose of all these morning processes and exercises, the purpose is to get you feeling good. It's to get you in that state of pleasure. So if, putting all of that stuff aside, making a coffee, sitting on your patio and sitting in the sun for half an hour brings you that pleasure,
Mm-hmm.
then stop trying so hard with all the processes, right?
Well, I absolutely, I understand her way of thinking as well because that's where I come from too, and we've been so ingrained and programmed, even with
Totally.
religion, where you have to take these steps in order to have that relationship with God and all that. So it becomes more about the process that we've been programmed with. So trying to just make it simple is such a foreign idea for a lot of us, and that includes me.
Totally. Yeah. There's a mindset that in order to achieve a certain level of success, it's got to involve hard work and it's got to be
Yep.
complicated and it's got to figure stuff out.
Mhm.
And my approach has always been, simplicity and consistency, right?
Mhm.
Keep it simple and be consistent with it. And really always tuning into your own inner guidance, right? So waking up in the morning and going, what feels good for me this morning? Is it the coffee and the sunshine? Or is it to go put on some good dance music and meditate for 20 minutes? And Monday it might be one option, Tuesday it might be the other option. There's no right or wrong, but it's about making sure that you're setting your priorities where it counts, which is alignment, feeling good, pleasure, and then following your inspirations from there.
Right. Okay. So that one last question, then the shift, right? The paradigm shift. So how do you take one person that has been so deeply programmed in one way of doing things, which is the hard work and have to go through all these processes in order to get the result, to just making it super simple? How does one make that switch?
Yeah, I would say it's not just like flipping one switch and it's going to all change overnight.
Oh, what, really? I thought that was about
Unfortunately,
simplicity.
that's what everybody looks for. I know. Um, I'd say again, it comes down to like that consistency, right? So that person needs to want it. Um, and what drives us to the hard work is, it's kind of two things. One, it's the habit. And
Mhm.
second, it's the belief in the hard work.
Mhm.
So if you believe in effort, that effort is absolutely going to make you a millionaire, then sure, effort's going to make you a millionaire. However, if you believe in your alignment, you will achieve that same level of success through alignment with a hell of a lot more ease and a much more funner ride, right?
Mhm.
So all realities are valid, all experiences are valid. For that person that's in that hard work mode, and I was there for a long time, it's just about bringing that awareness. And then once they have the awareness, then it's working through whatever they have going on in their mindset that makes them believe in effort more than it makes them believe in their alignment.
Well, I'm trying to get there. So,
Yeah, one day at a time. And I mean, and I fall back on effort sometimes too. It's a normal human being thing. But the more you find yourself in alignment, and really making it in a priority. Like for me, I noticed a huge difference in my productivity. Like, my new book, here it is here. I wrote Power Manifesting literally in like 3 weeks, right? And it just flowed. And the reason it flowed the way it did was because there was no, oh, it's got to be done by this date. It's got to be 200 pages. It's got to be like, there was
there
no
was no
pressure.
resistance.
I just wrote for me. I just wrote for the joy of the writing. And whenever you're tackling anything from that energy, that's when things flow. And, it became very apparent for me in the last year. And that really reinforces that importance of alignment.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for all you do, Nick. You're quite an
Awesome.
inspiration.
You can
And
you can just thank my inner being. This is just my highest excitement. So
thank you, Nick's inner being.
well, thanks for all the great questions.
Okay. All right. Well, I will be seeing you on your site.
Awesome. We'll check you later.
Okay. Bye.